Well, we had to wait till the 1st of September, and we finally got a named Tropical Storm Danielle, in the central Atlantic, and it's likely to, well, alter the pattern a little bit across the tropical Atlantic and points to the east and to the west. We'll talk about that. The Labor Day holiday weekend coming up as the month of September begins. All that and more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631 756 1125 is the telephone number, and they've got everything you need in case weather becomes a problem and you lose your power. They have Generac generators. Also, you want to get your yard looking good after the kind of summer we had with no rain. Mulch it nice up for the fall. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, serving the entire tri-state area. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. So, welcome. I mentioned last night that meteorologist Bill Goodman from the Weather Service was going to be joining us because Joe is not here tonight. It's his wedding anniversary, so he's on his way to the Billy Crystal show right now, which starts at 7:30. So that leaves you with me soloing tonight for the second time this week. So hope everybody had a great day. Welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board. It's nice to see the regulars here, and I'm not going to be able to look at the chat while I'm doing the weather here, but if you got any questions or comments, just leave them on, and I'll scroll away afterward and try to get to you to whatever questions you might have. So we went from the beginning of July to the very end of August without a named tropical system, which is, I think, the longest in something like 85 or 90 years, plus the fact that we did not have a named anything during the month of August. But this morning, we saw the Hurricane Center take a depression and turn it into a tropical storm. And we did mention last night, with everything that was going on, that system was likely going to be the one that would get the D name, Danielle. We're still looking at these other systems in the tropics that probably are going to struggle here going forward for a number of reasons, which I'll get to momentarily. But in the meantime, let's bring up the let's try and bring it up here. Let's see if I can do this. Here we go. And let's see that shot. All right, so we do have the satellite here of Danielle, and you can. This is a North Atlantic satellite view, which you can find on the GOES satellite pages, and it's a great view because you can see what's going on up in Greenland and also in northwestern parts of Europe, and you can see the clouds, big arm of moisture that is sweeping into Ireland and eventually into England and Scotland. That system is ripping right along, and right at the bottom center, it is a small system, but it is there right here. This was an upper low that decayed, and then you had a surface low pressure system that developed. The ocean water temperatures out here are running at around 27 C, which is more than enough to support tropical development. And indeed, this is now strengthened into a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. It's probably going to become a hurricane overnight or first thing tomorrow morning. There's no reason why it shouldn't. The only thing is it's very small. I mean, if you take a look at it, and then you take a look at comparison to the other weather systems that are running around, it is not a big system. The gales only go out about 30 or 40 miles, and probably if it does become a hurricane, probably going to have a very, very tight radius of hurricane force winds. And in the meantime, you'll notice that it's also not moving here. Though the westerlies in the upper atmosphere are active well to the north. So there's a bit of a ridge that it's underneath, and it's just kind of stuck there. There's no real push. Meanwhile, the cold front from the day before yesterday has now passed Nova Scotia and has moved to Newfoundland. You can see it out here with this long arm of clouds that runs from eastern Labrador and over Newfoundland and then on south into the open waters of the Atlantic. Another upper trough is passing through southeastern Canada and parts of upstate New York and northern New England with some patchy clouds. And everybody else today in the Northeast and down into the mid-Atlantic states had a really nice weather day. So that's a good thing. And we are now, when I mentioned earlier before the show started, that this system being here kind of alters things a bit in the Atlantic going forward in the next week or so. And I'm going to bring up the tropical Atlantic satellite to kind of expand on that idea. So let me give me a moment here. I'm just going to bring this shot up. And let's put a few extra frames in here. So here you have it. This is here's the tropical satellite. It'll loop in just a moment. Now you'll find if you look on the very top, it's almost off the screen, but it is right there at the very top, the very small tropical storm Danielle. And again, not moving very much. But what's happening is that aside from the fact that there's dry air around it, which is normal. Okay, you're going to have dry air that gets evacuated by the developing tropical system on both the west side and the east side. And as a result, there's a bit of a trough that extends down from where Danielle is to where this other tropical system that we've been watching for days and days, and that is the one that's in the central tropical Atlantic, right in here. And it shows some signs that it was becoming better organized, but it only got to a certain point and then kind of stopped, and we're still left with this elongated north-south low. It's probably there is still evidence of a bit of a mid-level circulation. There's a surface low there. It's all stretched out. So with the lack of a very well-defined center, you don't have a tropical depression. And this is one of the things that's kind of interesting down the road because of the fact that you've got the GFS, which was pretty aggressive with this once it got north of the Leeward Islands and then heading toward the not very close, but at least north of Puerto Rico, and then making a turn, and that's still likely the case. But I'm really beginning to wonder how much of this is going to develop, and the European model has been pretty good at indicating that, well, but maybe it's not going to develop as much as you think. So the best thing we could do at this point is just sort of watch what happens here on the satellite loop and see if we see any evidence of it becoming better organized overnight and into tomorrow. Meanwhile, there's also, if you look on the right, there is a circulation here north of the Cabo Verde Islands. There is a surface low there, but look how broad it is. Look at how the clouds that go so far to the north and also to the south of this. Disorganized showers, you don't really have a tight ball of convection near where the center is. In fact, there's very little going on near the center. And with Danielle out there, as this system starts to get deflected to the northwest, which it's going to do, it's also going to run into the residual trough that Danielle is producing. And as a result, let me draw that again. That's really weird. Why is it doing that? Set that. Let's try it again. Okay, so you got this sort of this residual. You're going to have this trough with Danielle. And anyway, the tool is deciding to kind of go crazy. But the bottom line is that this tropical wave is going to run into that trough, and you're going to get some shearing with winds coming from the southwest as it gets further to the north. So I would be surprised, and the Hurricane Center, I think, would also be surprised if this thing were to develop down the road. So Danielle becomes the season's fourth tropical storm, and it's actually pretty far to the north. So it's sitting way up there in the North Atlantic. You can see the other two systems from the Hurricane Center from their 2 o'clock tropical weather outlook where they're located. And by the way, just as a matter of commentary here, it's just ridiculous some of the stuff that's out there in terms of the stories. I mean, they're just so people, purposely write stories that have no, with teases that just are just not going to happen. But they're trying to get you to click and they're trying to get you to read, and it's really deceptive. But that's the world we live in. So anyway, Danielle intensifying on the last advisory at 38.1 north, 44.5 west. That is pretty far out there. 950 miles west of the Azores. Top winds 60 miles an hour, moving east or 090 degrees at 2 miles an hour. I mean, we're talking crawling. And tropical storm force winds extend out about 45 miles from the center. As we said, it's pretty small. And here's the forecast from the Hurricane Center, and you can see how tight it is from where we are from 6 p.m. Friday. I don't know what they did. There's so many plots in one particular spot, so I guess they decided to just go with the first one from 6 where you start to see it move a little bit. So from 6 p.m. Friday to 6 p.m. Tuesday, it barely moves a couple of hundred miles. So it is going to be out there for the next few days. It will become a hurricane. And it might become, it may get to 95 or 100 miles an hour. I wouldn't at all be surprised if it does that. I think on the forecast advisory, they actually take it to 80 to 85 knots. So that would be 100 miles an hour. I wouldn't be surprised if it got even a little bit stronger than that. But the bottom line is that while Danielle is out there in the north central Atlantic, it is going to, as I said, it's going to have some impact on what's going on elsewhere. And I'll get to that also in a moment. So let's go back. We'll bring the eastern U.S. satellite view up, and we'll put that loop in motion. And I'm going to make this a little smaller, so this way it's there on the screen. And there we are. So here's your U.S. Satellite view, the satellite loop tonight, and you'll notice just a really nice day, except for clouds way up in upstate New York and in northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, with that trough that's moving through eastern Canada. Just a really spectacular day with low dew points, temperatures into the 80s. I mean, just a really nice early September day. Clouds in the eastern North Carolina, down to southern Georgia and Florida. The dry air, by the way, the dew points that were down in the 50s made it all the way to me in North Georgia and into Alabama. In fact, this morning, my low was 55. So that was really nice. It was the coolest morning we've had here probably since June. And there's not a whole lot happening. We've got some clouds and showers and storms blowing up in parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Also some tropical moisture coming out of Mexico and into a small area in southernmost Arizona and West Texas. South of the Baja Peninsula, you see what appears to be a developing tropical system. And in fact, if we go to the eastern Pacific zone, we do have Tropical Depression 11E, which is at 18.9 and 110.5 west. And that is forecast to become a minimal tropical storm as it moves on a mostly northwest course and then does what it usually does, is probably straddles just off the Baja Peninsula and eventually becomes post-tropical. On the radar tonight, as we take a look, it is just absolutely quiet in the eastern part of the U.S. You can see from Maine down into South Carolina. And then you get into some showers and thunderstorms and some heavy downpours in parts of southeast Georgia and into northeastern Florida, extending back in southern Georgia into southeastern Alabama. Also, some scattered downpours in the state of Florida. And then you see a larger area of rain and downpours in East Texas, not moving very fast, into western Louisiana, extending up into Oklahoma, western Arkansas, and into southeastern Kansas. Some scattered downpours in West Texas. Not too much happening as you look up into the Rockies. Some scattered showers going up the Rockies and into the northern plains. But other than that, it's very, very quiet. The Storm Prediction Center, with no organized severe weather tonight, which is good. For tomorrow, we've got a marginal risk in Arizona. And also a marginal risk from the Oklahoma Panhandle, then from Kansas up through Iowa, Wisconsin, and into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. This is for tomorrow into Saturday morning, Saturday into Sunday. As you see on day 2, let me just go back a moment here. You can see from Maine down to North Carolina, and even into a small portion of South Carolina, no thunderstorms are forecast tomorrow. And going back to the west side of the Appalachians, just some general activity expected on the west side of the central and southern Appalachians down through the southeast and then across the Gulf states and beyond. Day 3, which is Saturday into Sunday, we're still seeing no thunderstorms from Maine down into coastal North Carolina. Otherwise, you can see the large area of general thunderstorm activity. I don't believe there's anything in the long range. Potential too low for day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, and day 8. And as we've been following the 7-day forecasts from WPC, let's give this a quick update here. And there we go. So as far as a 7-day forecast, they've kind of beefed it up a little bit, where they're indicating a quarter to a half an inch of liquid for much of central and southern New England, down into the Carolinas. You see a few patches of a half to 3/4. On the other hand, you see also a few patches where it's less than a quarter. Some heavier amounts in the southern Appalachians down into northern Georgia and northeastern Alabama on the order of about 1.5 inches plus. And then you've got several inches or more from the Louisiana coast to the Texas coast and points westward in south Texas and in south central Texas. And then it tails off quite a bit as you go northwestward to next to nothing through much of the western part of the United States for the next 7 days. So on that note, let's move to the models and see what kind of hints that they will be giving us regarding the next few days. I'm going to start with the European. And I'm going to be looking, I actually have not had an opportunity to look at the European until just now, so we're going to do some forecasting here on the fly. And this is the upper air of the European. So I'll just roll it back to tonight. And of course, you see the trough in the northeast that's lifting through. We've got another dry day tomorrow with low humidity. I think we're going to hold on to those lower dew points into Saturday, although the dew points will come up on Saturday. But I think I would regard it, if they get back up to 60 or so, that would still be reasonably comfortable. Meanwhile, you have a strong upper high in the southwest. Heat's going to be a big deal this weekend in California. We've got a deep low in the Aleutians, extending southward from there. That's helping to force that ridge up. And we also have a strong ridge along 40 west that goes all the way up to Greenland. And in all of this, as far as the tropical systems are concerned, you can see this represents Danielle. We don't have the European showing any real representation other than a weakness in here north of the islands with regards to that tropical wave that's approaching the northern Leeward Islands. So the Europeans not going to be doing very much with this, I'm guessing. And here's your upper high. Here's your other upper high sitting off the east coast. And then as we go through the weekend, that ridge lines up right along the immediate east coast. Now, one of the arguments that I've been making is that if the system that's north of the Leeward Islands stays weak, it's likely to hang on and try to move more west for a longer period of time. You start to see the European show a reflection of the system developing, though, when it's south of Bermuda. So at least on this run, it seems to be picking up. I'm sorry, I got the GFS up. Let me just take that back. I got the GFS up. And just right there, I just realized that I thought I put the European up, but I got the GFS. So anyway, it takes that out to the northeast, forms a trough off the east coast early next week, which helps it along, and then just kind of kicks it away from there, but leaves a lot of troughing down right along the east coast next week. Into the southeast, there's another upper low that cuts off South Carolina, which I think is pretty interesting there. And then going forward, there's more energy that drops down from the lakes. It sort of leaves some kind of bizarre upper low in Wisconsin and just sort of leaves it there and then opens it up and takes it onto the northeast. Now, I'm going to now go to the European. My apologies for that. So here we go. Now let's look at what the European is doing. And as I said, the European doesn't really show much of any reflection of this tropical system coming out of the Leeward Islands. There's a little closed height line there that's north of the Leeward Islands that might be a representation of that. Or it could even be the upper high because they don't have a height built around it, so I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to guess it's probably more the high than anything else. And as we move into next week, it leaves a little bit of ridging off the east coast and hangs a trough back from the St. Lawrence Valley to about Kentucky and Tennessee. Now, if this is right, the cold front that's going to be coming through on Sunday is likely to get hung up for a couple of days. So this might open the door to the possibility that we could see a few days where we're going to get some showers and much needed rain if the European is correct. If the GFS is correct and the trough shifts offshore, then we probably won't see very much. So it's kind of interesting that the European's doing this for next week and even beyond that to an extent. And by the way, take a look now toward the end of this forecast period. You suddenly do have something that forms there near the Bahamas. Now, this is kind of interesting. We talked about this yesterday. I think part of the reason why it's evolving in this way is, again, because we do have Danielle out in the central Atlantic that's kind of altering the upper pattern a bit. But take a look at this. You got this is next Friday night with a high off the mid-Atlantic coast, and you've got a southerly flow there right up along the east coast because the way the European sees life, it's got an upper low over the Great Lakes and a trough that hangs down from there, and another trough behind it that's moving into Montana and into the Dakotas. So as we go forward, it only goes out to day 10, of course, which is next Sunday. This is something that I think we need to pay, if we're still seeing this over the weekend, and I thought this was a possibility a couple of days ago, and if this plays out, this could make for a very interesting dynamic down the road. But again, it's a long ways off, but something to think about. And we'll take a look on the surface. So let's take a look here on the surface map. And all right, so let's back it up. All right, let's go here. So there's Danielle at 990. Just going back to tonight. There we go. So right now there's Danielle, and I'll just mark it off here for you. So this is your tropical storm, very small. Here's your system off the African coast, and here's the representation of what is east of the Leeward Islands. So we move it along. Danielle is still out there. The Leeward Island system is just basically a weak low. Maybe it becomes a tropical depression. Maybe it doesn't. It's still just kind of sitting there. Again, it's so weak that it just goes more west and south as opposed to getting picked up as a developed system and carried it out to the northeast. And then it starts to develop it late in the forecast period. And there you see it, kind of moving northwestward there, just east of the Bahamas. And you notice that the European here has got all this rain later next week, or actually even in the early part of the week, starting with Sunday when the front approaches, and then continuing for Monday, Labor Day. And again, with that trough to the west, there'll be chances for downpours during next week if the European is correct. And it's drawing this tropical system and northwestward. And again, if you're going to have a trough that's lined up to your west, there's your alleyway. So, you know, we're going to keep our eyes open on this. Again, the Canadian, because we said yesterday when the European and the Canadian are doing the same thing, it's worth paying attention to. Now, if you watch also, the European also has another system behind it, behind the one off the African coast. It kind of takes west northwest. It doesn't do anything with it, but there's another wave that comes off early next week, and then that tracking along to the west and west northwest. Uh, I would probably suggest that maybe it's going to take a similar track to whatever this lead system does. So very interesting that the Canadian and the European are kind of on the same page here with regards to the long range. The GFS, as we look at that, does have a tropical system, but it's weird what it does here. So the GFS takes the system in the lee, approaching the leewards, and it develops it more than the other models. You see it there, moves it northeast, passes east of Bermuda, and goes out. Now, with all that leftover troughing in the eastern part of the United States, and I guess that's because it forms that cutoff off the South Carolina coast, it forms some kind of low on the west coast of Florida, and then starts to move it northeastward toward the Carolinas and beyond. I don't know. That's kind of that's a little bit of a far-fetched solution in my book. It also doesn't seem to have much of anything coming up off the African coast. Again, I will go back to what Tony Gigi had said about the idea that when the European and the Canadian are on the same page, it's probably a good idea to pay attention. So I think if we're still at it this weekend, come Sunday on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, if we're seeing this on Sunday, then we may have something a bit more serious to talk about. And in terms of the upper air on the GFS, which is decidedly different because it's more progressive, everything just kind of moves along. You can see there's a deep trough that lifts out early on the week of, say, September 11th and 12th from eastern Canada, and then the longer term and even deeper trough starts to drop in toward the end of the forecast period. But that's such a long ways away. So short range, as we go into this Labor Day holiday weekend, as we said, we're probably not going to see much happening here. Tomorrow should be a really nice day in the eastern part of the United States. You got that high in upstate New York that moves off the New England coast. Dew points are going to be reasonable. Temperatures are going to be reasonable. Saturday, the dew points will come up some, but not go crazy. But Sunday will start to get much more humid, and we've got a cold front approaching with some showers and thunderstorms. I think for the coastal plain, much of the day should be okay, but starting in the afternoon in upstate New York and in Pennsylvania, and also back down into parts of Tennessee and Alabama, because that front does extend pretty far to the south, we'll start to get into some downpours and thunderstorms. And the front does get hung up, leaving us with the opportunity for some showers and storms around for Monday, Labor Day. So I guess it decided that after not raining for most of the summer, it'd be a good idea to wash out why don't I maybe wash out is a too harsh a word, considering that we've been through the experience where the models like to show rain until we get there, and then if everything just kind of dries up. But I think we'll get something out of this on Monday, and there's still some lingering showers even into Tuesday. And with this trough that's sort of off the East Coast, it pulls most of the shower activity out for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And there's that bizarre low that forms on the west coast of Florida and then moves northeastward the week of the 12th and 13th. While when we look at the other models, we have a bit of a wetter solution here on the European, where the front gets hung up. There's a wave on it. Then there's another wave that develops on it for Tuesday. You still have some showers kind of rotating around it. And then we have more showers toward the end of the week, and now here comes this tropical system next weekend. That if it's real, we'll wait and see. But my confidence level is a little higher today based on what the models are doing. It's hard, as I said, with the two of the three global models showing this, it is it's something I think it's worth paying attention to. So hang on 1 second so I can get myself back up on the screen. I'm around. They updated the software program, so I don't know where I am right now. Nope. That's Carol Merrill. That's Mrs. Bundy. Where did I go? I'm done this side. Nope. That's Omni. Sorry about that, folks. Here I am. There we go. So I'm right there. So, um, I have to talk to Bill Goodman to see when he's going to be able to come on. So I don't have any show scheduled for tomorrow or Saturday, but if he does decide that he can do the show, just look for a notification and we'll go from there. Leon Probitsky hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Leon. Most appreciated. I'm just running through the chat. Let's see. Tornado watch a year ago. Mark DeCara says because of the remnants of Ida. Yes. It was a year ago that we had to deal with that. So think about all the rain that Ida produced. That was, basically a month's worth of rain in a day, and we've just had, an incredibly dry July and August. We certainly could use some rainfall. A little more confident with the models as far as trying to show some rain coming in for the early part of next week. Okay. So Johnny Quest, with the tropical storm moving at only 2 miles an hour, wouldn't it bring up cold water from the deep? Well, eventually it does get upwelled, but it takes some time to do that because it's such a small system. So if it was a Category 3 hurricane right now sitting in the same spot, then yeah, you'd probably see the upwelling go on. But while it's still in the development phase, you're still likely to see it strengthen up to a point. And then as it starts to gradually move away, as long as it stays over a warm pool of water, I think it should be able to maintain its strength over the next 4 or 5 days. And thanks, Chuck, for the compliment about soloing. It's the second time this week that I've had to solo. When Joe was sick earlier this week, and now for today. So David Schwartz saying Lake Mead water levels have gone up very slightly due to the rain runoff in recent rains, but Lake Powell continues to drop. It's astounding to me out in the west with all the rain that they've had to deal with in the last couple of months, and how long term that drought is and how much damage it's done. That you can get 2 months worth of rain, where it rains basically every day for 2 months, and it's a sizable amount of rain, and it only can dent the drought. It doesn't even completely get rid of it. So they obviously need a lot more. And with this big upper high building in the western part of the United States, the monsoon is going to be shut down for a little while. And in fact, just looking here, I mean, they've got excessive heat warnings and heat advisories up now for southern Nevada, much of California, into Oregon and Idaho, and into Washington State, and also into parts of Montana. So the big ridge in the west, leaving them with a rather hot Labor Day holiday weekend. So on that note, let me just remind you that tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website. Don't have Joe Rayo to say it, so I have to say it. The website is omnitruevalue.com. So on Sunday, we'll have a Joe and Joe weather show on Sunday. It'll either be at 11 a.m. or 12 noon, depending on my schedule Sunday morning. I don't think I'm going to be moving it to Sunday evening. So it'll either be at 11 a.m., the usual time, or I may have to push it back a half an hour or an hour to noon at the latest. So just give you a little bit of a heads up on that. And again, if I hear from Bill Goodman that he's available to do a show either tomorrow night or Saturday, I'll I'll set one up and just look for notifications about it, and we'll go from there. Okay. So everybody have a great Friday. Have a great Labor Day holiday weekend, and we'll see you we'll see you Sunday for sure, and who knows? Maybe tomorrow, maybe Saturday. Good night, everybody.